Good morning and welcome to Compass Daily. I'm CM from the Outreach Team.
And I'm Philip Kemp from the Outreach Team. Thank you so much for being here at Compass Daily. This week will be a little bit different. Instead of hearing from one of our pastors, we're going to be seeing what God is doing through the Outreach Team. But first, let's worship.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophet. From a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side. From the throne of our salvation, Jesus, for our sake you died. Oh, praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. In the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored. And the church of Christ was born, and then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not fade, shall not fade. By his blood and in his name, in his freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Oh, praise forever to the King of Kings.
Over the next 5 days, you're going to hear stories about Compass Outreach and how God is unstoppable in both local and global partners. We're so excited for you to hear these stories.
In the first story, you're going to see how one box of food can impact so many lives. But CM, this all started a year ago, didn't it?
Isn't it crazy? March 13th, it was a Friday. We get a call, Thursday night service had happened. Pandemic is starting to go global, and we decided to go strictly online for the weekend. So we do a Zoom call with our whole team, right? And so everybody's in their living room or home offices, and we start talking about what do we do. And I believe you got on the phone with all of our local partners.
Right.
And I started reaching out to some of the school district contacts I had and people I found through my wife working in the school and other people. And I remember by Saturday morning, we were ready to mobilize our very first drive-through drop-off of food items for schools who were feeding kids who had nothing at home. And I think that was the start of 10 consecutive weeks of food drives, right?
Right. So our leadership was like, hey, go find the most needy. Go find the people who need the most help. And you're right. We were talking to our partners, and we're like, hey, who needs help? Like, who doesn't have food? And that like really spurred on something amazing, doing food drives, Compass people just donating food and items, and we were taking like truckloads of stuff to different folks.
Yeah, and it wasn't just here locally. We went to Bridgeport. Right. Remember that? We took a load out to Bridgeport. During that time, we also began to see the burden on our medical community, right. The nurses and doctors and hospital workers. And so we began to deliver pizzas during that time to 7 different hospitals, including one of the hospitals through the prison system. Mm-hmm. And I just remember seeing how awesome that was, what God was doing. And then at the end of those 10 weeks, we thought we were going to rest, right? Like the Lord said, well done, take a rest. And so he gave us a rest for what?
Like a day?
12 hours. Yeah, 12 hours. And then we get a call about these boxes of food.
Yes. So one of our Compass members who wanted to use their gifts and abilities through their business to provide for the community says, hey, I've heard about this food box program, and I want to see how I can use it. And what happened next?
Well, remember our boss says, hey, I think he wants to give 20,000 boxes of food to Compass. Can we do something with that? And we're like, okay. So we got on this call on Friday. He kind of soft-sold it to us, didn't he?
He did.
And so we got on this call, and the guy says, hey, we've got this contract for like 3 or 4 months. Can you guys use 10,000 boxes of food a week? And remember, our boss's eyes, he bugged out on screen. I remember he was like, yes. And we were like, yeah, we can do that. And by the next week, by Tuesday, we started getting food to various partners around the city. Yeah. And then we went from like 15,000 boxes one week, 20,000 down boxes. To 10 pretty consecutively, all the way up to after 4 or 5 months, we had 100,000 boxes of food given out. Yeah. But tell the story about early on in that Zoom call you did with World Relief.
Yeah, because you could really see that God was moving. Because I got on a Zoom call, and World Relief has a bunch of different church partners. And I get on the call, and I was like, okay, there'll be 15 partners on there. Different people we could talk to. There was upwards of 30, 40 partners on there, all wanting to work together in order to get food to the people who needed it most.
We were able to give food to Meals on Wheels, right. To the Roanoke Food Pantry, to the Sheriff's Department in Dallas County, through the hospital system that worked in the prison. And it was just amazing to see these different places that food. We sent food to Arizona, right. To our missionaries at the edge of Navajo Nation. And we just began to see all of these cool things happen. And so we went from the food box. Out of the food boxes, we estimate to have fed 3 million meals.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
So we hit November, and then we decided to do what?
So November.
Go on vacation.
Go on vacation? No. Nope.
Nope.
Meal marathon.
Meal marathon.
And what did we do? I mean, we had how many locations did we have?
We did 2 locations, and instead of one day in the Compass Center with 2,000 volunteers over 5 shifts, we did 20 shifts over 2 locations over 6 days.
Yes.
And we did what? Yeah. We hit the record.
Oh, we hit the record of 300,000 meals.
600.
600,000 meals. It was more than I thought. I remember it vividly now because we were about to hit the cap. We usually do 500,000, and people were so motivated, so into it,
unreal.
They went over. I'm like, we're close to 600,000.
Yeah.
Like we could make it. And then we hit 600,000. People just went nuts.
And it was so interesting because as we got to the fall and we were worried about COVID and sporting events were on and off and on and off, we were like, is Meal Marathon on? Is it off? Right. And one of the things that happened in that, we were charged with making it safe. That's why we did 20 different shifts. Right. And our people showed up. You showed up in amazing ways. Yeah. And we had business communities come. We had sports teams come. And we were able to do more meals than we've ever done. Right. And so we roll to the end of the year with almost 4 million meals through Compass that are given to partners, again, locally and globally. And we roll into the new year, and it's going to be smooth sailing.
You know, I thought we were gonna break, but then you had Snowmageddon, like out of nowhere. Here comes Snowmageddon. But again, you could see how God was already moving because people didn't have power, people didn't have water, but you saw Compass show up, giving wood, giving water, doing just amazing things.
Willing to help at every turn. And then in the midst of that, one of our emergency relief partners out of Indiana delivers a truckload of water.
Right. Yeah.
And that water comes, and we're able to give it to apartment complexes that are without water for weeks on end.
Yeah.
We're able to give it to schools, to give it to their families that don't have water. We're sending it to Dallas to apartment complexes that are drinking water out of pools. And we just began to see how God was moving in even greater ways in 2021 than we ever imagined.
Yeah. And the thing that I love most is seeing Compass people just grabbing water, putting it in trucks, and taking it to neighborhoods that needed it. Like without asking, people were like, I'll do that. And they were just going and loving on people, and it's nothing I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing.
What's awesome to me is working with domestic and international partners this past year of getting to see and meet our local partners on a new level. A lot of new folks we interacted with for the very first time, but then some trusted partners like stories we're going to tell.
Right. And coming up in this story, we're going to talk about SOS. And Elisha Talenton is leading the charge with them. And you're going to see how one box of food can change so many lives.
Back in March, around March 15th, is when things started shutting down here. And we were just coming off of spring break. And we had a conference call that basically said, what do we need to do to help our community? How can we mobilize? And I'll never forget that. Each one of us was on Zoom, and we were in our living rooms or home offices or wherever, and we started having the discussion, what do we do next?
And I remember our leadership was like, just go and find out what our local partners need. Go and find the most needy and see how Compass can help.
We had our local partners, and then we just started calling everybody. Remember, we start calling the school districts, and we start calling any of the either partners we used to have or future partners even. We found out about, hey, this group is trying to feed kids in local school districts, or this group is, we found some homeless kids in schools that aren't going to get fed during this time. And they just began to come out, not out of the woodwork, but we just began to hear about more and more of how we could help.
Yeah, you could just see this way that God was working a miracle. Like maybe he knew it was already going to go on, so he started placing these people in place already. Yeah. And we were talking to places like World Relief, and they had this whole network of churches ready to get food to people who need it. And it's just this amazing thing that was happening.
Well, in that opening weekend, we did our very first food drive, the first of 10 drives we did consecutively, remember? And so we had our first service online that Sunday, and then Compass dropped off thousands of food items to go in snack packs for GCISD to help with their lunches that they were mobilized at the last minute to get into kids' hands.
I think after that we did a food drive or food something for every single week after that.
Yes.
And we helped Christ Haven, we helped Grace, we helped SOS. There was so much food, and see how much food do we end up raising at the end of the year.
It was tens of thousands of items. And then in the middle of that, we decided, why don't we start delivering pizzas with Wise Guys Pizza to the local hospitals? And so we began doing handwritten notes on pizza boxes that went to the local hospitals to say, thank you for what you're doing. We're praying for what you are doing. We went to Parkland Hospital that works in the prison in Dallas County, and we were able to deliver pizzas to them. And both of these things went concurrently for about 10 weeks. Remember that? And then at the end of 10 weeks, we thought, the Lord's given us a season of rest, right?
Right.
And that lasted for like 12 hours?
Yeah,
12 hours. And then what happened?
And then we had one of our members who wanted to use their business to really impact the kingdom. He said, hey, the government showed me this food program. How can the church get involved? What can we do? And he brought us this like food for weeks in order to drop off to our local partners and different things like that.
We did 10 to 20,000 boxes of food to area partners for the next 4 or 5 months. And through that, we were able to feed over 3 million meals, which was amazing to see how God opened that door of something that we could never be a part of. But one of our Compass members listening to the Lord and through their local business was able to say, hey, how can my local church get involved in this? Out of this time period, we've seen a lot of stories, and you, Compass, have heard some of them, but we want to tell you some more.
During this trying time, one of the stories that rises to the occasion is SOS Local, established by Elisha Talenton, and we want to tell you his story.
Food changes things. Food is incredible. You think about being able to go to your refrigerator, get something when your kid is hungry, or to the cabinet to pull out a snack for your child. A lot of families can't do that. But in Dallas, there's a lot of food deserts, which means that there's not immediate access to fresh produce, fresh foods. Even with the craziness of 2020, everything was just basically shut down. Well, it was the opposite for food banks. We were able to provide over 6 million meals to people in need across North Texas. The warehouse that we're in now, currently that I'm in now, is too small. We're actually moving it into a warehouse double this size. Even though we did 6 million meals, it's not about that. It's about the people behind those meals. It's been a hard time for so many people, but it's also been an amazing time to see the love of Christ and the love of Christ come through people to help people in need. One of the things that SOS International does is we love to partner with the local church. And that's because we want the gospel to go out. And being able to do that with Compass was huge. We had a food drive at the Roanoke campus, and we were able to feed over 125 families there. Compass stepping up and doing something that you know is going to affect somebody's life is incredible. We get a lot of donations, which is awesome, but we need volunteers. The more that we can get together and be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, it can change the outlook of a family.
Through this next story, we're going to see how a food box from Compass can empower one of our local partners to share the gospel with his neighbor.
I've been connected with Compass Christian Church for a long time. It's a phenomenal church that has really blessed our family in many ways. And one of the ways they recently have blessed us is through Compass's food program. And they would bring these boxes over, and we always wanted to be generous in our neighborhood. So I would go around and share with our different neighbors. One day I get this call from my neighbor, and he's like, hey, I've been wanting to talk to you about something. Can I come over? And so he came over, and we've been friends for a while. And I was asking questions, learning about his tradition, and they just had Eid, which is a big part of Ramadan and celebration. And he was talking about how there's a sacrifice. He said, do you Christians, do you sacrifice? And I walked him through about the story about when Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, how God provided a lamb. He's like, I've heard that one. Then I said, one of the names for Jesus was the Lamb of God. He's like, where are you getting all these stories? I'm like, well, they're in the Bible. And he's like, I've never thought about that before. Let's talk about this some more. We've set up several meetings, and we've had more conversation, more dialogue. But the journey is not over. And they say on average it takes about 17 times sharing the gospel, but it takes the whole church doing their part. My brother Phil showing up with a box, giving it to us. God gives us opportunities in everyday life where we have conversations, and what Compass did for us in this situation, it gave us a platform. You never know when you get to be a part of something eternal. All God wants us to do is say yes. And by simply saying yes to Jesus in that moment, knocking on your neighbor's door, asking questions, learning, sharing your bread, being the hands and feet of Jesus, that's the work of the church.
Thank you so much for being part of this Compass Daily. Because of your generosity, Compass Outreach can impact lives internationally and locally. If you want to continue to partner with us, there's several ways. Go to compass.church/give.
If you enjoyed this video today, if you would click share and share it with all your friends and family, and tune in tomorrow as we tell more stories. See you tomorrow.